Hello, hello. Welcome to I Like Art podcast. My name is Sara Glupker, and I have a very, very special episode for you guys today. We are going to be listening to an amazing shining light in this world, and I cannot wait to share with you all about her and her story. Her name is Emily, and I'm just going to give you a little background information. Emily and her husband, Andrew, they raise corn, soybeans, cover crops, a few chickens, and 2 farm kids in West Central Illinois. Emily is an elementary school teacher turned nonprofit leader turned entrepreneur. She's deeply passionate about serving rural women through life coaching, speaking, masterminds, digital content, retreats, and the upcoming Raising Reuschel podcast. Emily's personalized habit challenge, You Do You 82, helps women build strong, attainable, and consistent habits to show up for their lives that they love. Her joy list includes red dirt country music, iced americanos, snuggling on the couch with her family, personal growth books, and long runs on rural back roads. So I'm so excited to introduce you today to Emily Reuschel. Welcome to the show, Emily.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Oh my goodness. I'm so excited to talk to you about all the things today. And we're just going to dive right in. Does that sound good?
That sounds wonderful.
Okay.
I'm here for it all.
Wonderful. Okay, Emily, I have my notes here. So let's talk about you. Let's do a further deep dive than the intro. Tell us about you and what you're up to these days.
Absolutely. So as you shared, first of all, there's nothing more awkward than listening to someone read your bio. You're like, okay, I did write that and that is all true, but
I love it. I think it's really good.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So my name is Emily. As you mentioned, I'm a mom to 2. I have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. And my husband and I live on his family farm in West Central Illinois, truly in the middle of nowhere. I grew up in what I thought was a small town in Southern Illinois, just outside St. Louis. I went to college for elementary education, and I was a teacher for 5 years before my husband brought me back home to the family farm. And as much as I was so excited about what that transition would look like, it definitely kind of turned my world upside down in the best way possible. So in our time since we've been here, I think it's been 6 years now, I've gone from a teacher to working at our local YMCA to most recently stepping out on my own as an entrepreneur. So as you said in my bio, I am so passionate about serving rural women and creating resources to help them really live their life on purpose and create lifestyles and habits and community that they love. So being an entrepreneur was something that I never envisioned for my life. I feel like I listen to a lot of podcasts with entrepreneurs and they're like, yeah, I always knew it. I was like slinging lemonade and bracelets at school. Like it was not part of my game plan whatsoever. I thought I was going to be a teacher for the rest of my life. And as much as I say that isn't true anymore, it really is, because when I look back to what I was doing in the classroom and even to what I'm doing now, I am, encouraging people every step of the way through their journey. I am taking, all this information in the world that I love learning about and, describing it in a way that really taps into what makes sense for their lifestyle. I'm building community just like I did in the classroom. So really, I'm a lifelong learner. I'm a lifelong teacher. And like I said, we're here on the farm and I just absolutely love it. And I just get so excited to talk to rural women. As you said, as we were chatting before, you live next to a cornfield, so you are my kind of people.
Oh, I love it so much. So shout out to the Midwest, right? I know we're neighbors pretty much. We're just going to say that. And I love that so much. I know a lot of my listeners are potentially rural. And I know people who don't live in a rural setting are going to learn so much from you and enjoy this interview. So thank you so much for sharing all of that. And I love how you talked about being a lifelong learner and a lifelong teacher, and that, you can form that into your own niche. And as an entrepreneur, basically you're doing the same things that you were doing, but you're working for yourself. So very cool and very, I applaud you for making that change. I don't know what it was for you. You said that your husband kind of talked you into it, but to leave a traditional profession and then to kind of evolve over time into being an entrepreneur. I know as an artist, I feel the same way where I could work in a school, or, I could teach art at a school, but it just didn't work for me. So I love the adventure of being an entrepreneur. I can just sense that from you. So thank you so much for sharing that. Now, this is a podcast about creativity, and I just kind of want to touch on that. Where does creativity kind of seep into your work and your everyday life?
Absolutely. So it's interesting because the family I was raised in, not my parents necessarily, but my aunts, my cousins, my grandma's, like, artistic and creativity was very much a part of what I knew growing up. It wasn't uncommon for us to go to art museums or to shows at the Fox Theater, seeing ballet, or going to see Wicked, things like that. I was involved with band and choir and taking art classes. But I think one thing a lot of people identify with is, oh, I'm not an artist, or I'm not good enough, or I don't have this, like, certain skill set. And that's something that I've been working to undo, not even just in the realm of art, but that enoughness that, well, if I can't do it perfectly, it's not worth my time to do it at all. So one thing through my experiences as a teacher and as a camp counselor and camp director that I really fell into loving is just, like, that process of creation and finding creativity in what makes sense for your life and taps into your skill set, or just feels fun and exciting. So in my day-to-day life now, I would say my creativity comes out in the digital content that I'm creating, whether it's through storytelling with pictures or captions, or creating graphics that might portray a certain quote or idea that I would like to express, or even just in the crazy realm of trying to figure out how to create reels on Instagram, which I have a love-hate relationship with. But it's really, how can I take this thing that I want to say and turn it into something that someone is going to be ready to receive in a way that's different than what someone else is doing, that, also showcases our lifestyle, and just trying to not take myself too seriously and have fun with it. Like, progress over perfection. Like, I just have to take messy action to get better at the things that I don't know how to do. And then on a personal side, I would say, gosh, I don't know. I don't spend as much time creating as perhaps now that I'm thinking I would like to. I feel like maybe before kids, I took more time to do projects, whether it was, decorating signs for the house or home projects, things like that. But when you have littles, gosh, that just doesn't happen as often. I'm in it.
You are in it. Yeah.
For me, it's like giving those experience to my kids, pulling out the paint, even when it's messy. And I'm like, oh gosh, it's going to get all over the kitchen table, but just, like, releasing that expectation of what, that needs to look like, and just allowing them the space to explore different mediums, and just learn that joy of creating, and also the benefit that creativity brings, for their mental health and for all their senses.
Yes. Oh, thank you for sharing. I love all of that. That's so good. And I think it's really neat to hear you talk about your story about your childhood and how you were exposed to the arts, and you were able to participate and create and be in music and band. And then now you're passing that on to your kiddos. So I applaud you, and I applaud anybody who paints with their children, because it's something that you have to be a little brave and let some things go. And you don't have to be teaching them either. It sounds like, putting the materials in their hands is plenty. And I also want to say, I have 3 daughters, and they are now older. So it does get easier. And when you're in that super busy little phase, creating for your business and for, all of the content creation and all the reels and the videos and the posts, all of that is plenty. I'm sure creatively you probably feel pretty fulfilled, and eventually you'll have time for a few other things. Or sometimes I would just live vicariously through my younger kids as they were painting. Maybe I could try to paint something, or, when they walked away and they were done, you could have a little time to create, but hang in there. That's always my advice for people with younger children is hang in there. You will have a little bit more time for those things later on. So thank you so much for sharing that. And okay, so let's keep going. Why is it important? Why is it so important that everyone finds their own creative outlet? Why do you feel that's important? I'm sure I know you do, but
I do. And again, that kind of goes back to somewhere along the line, I think a lot of us are fed the narrative that in order to pursue anything at all, we have to be really good at it. We have to be the best at it. We have to be monetizing it. Gold star syndrome runs so deep, especially in women. So I remember even as a child, the specific coloring book I got, and it was so fancy. And I was like, I don't think that I can color this good enough for it to the way it deserves. So I'm just going to save it until I'm older. And now I look back on it and I'm like, gosh, like how sad was that? And I don't know necessarily where that came from. It wasn't one source that I can identify. So I think a lot of times we hold ourselves back from creating any kind of project because we think, oh, it doesn't look as good as what I see on Instagram, or the Pinterest fail mentality of just trying to copy what someone else is doing and then not feeling adequate enough. Where I think there's so much value in the process of creating. I mean, as humans, we are designed to work with our hands in some capacity. And having that creative outlet, whether it's clay or paint or a house project or whatever it may look like, really taps into different parts of our brain. Now, I am not a brain expert, so I'm not even going to try to get into the science of it, but I know that it's there, and allows kind of those emotions to flow in a different way. And, I think about my husband, who by maybe textbook definition is like the least artistic person ever, but all day long he is building equipment for the farm. He's looking at problems, figuring out how to solve them, and literally like creatively engineering. And he gets so much passion and joy from that, where him sitting down at an easel with paint, he's like, I don't know, I guess I'll dry some cord, which is also cool. But that's not where he feels like that energy and fulfillment. So to your point, I think that it's so important for people to find like what lights them up and let go of the need to feel like it should be a certain way, or it should look like how she does it, or it should emulate the example on Pinterest.
Yes. Mic drop. So you pretty much outlined my whole life's purpose in one question. So thank you. It's like, yeah, I could not agree more. I mean, I'm just 100% the idea of creating, and not for monetary reasons, but just for ourselves. Yes. I mean, I could go on and on about this. This could become my pod. Like you could be interviewing me right now, but I love that so much. So thank you for sharing that. What are your current ways to be creative if you had the time, or, on a perfect day, aside from your job? How do you like to be creative? And this doesn't have to be like an art kind of thing. It can be anything, like you said, with your husband.
Right, because my initial reaction was like, I'm creating all day long for work. Like I'm creating content, I'm making reels, I'm writing emails.
And you enjoy what you do. It's quite obvious.
Yes. I do. And I think that makes a really big difference for me, because I don't necessarily feel the overwhelming need to have a creative outlet outside of what I'm doing. But even within, I would say the last 10 days, 2 weeks or so, I have even changed the way I'm creating. to be like, you know what, we get so caught up in, okay, what does Instagram want? What does the algorithm
Yeah,
need? How do I blah, 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 blah. And
totally.
no, I'm scaling back to like, what do I find joy in putting into the world? Like, what do I connect with? What do I want to say? And just like really trusting it's going to find the person that it's meant to. So that has brought a lot more joy to the creative process versus starting to feel like I'm working for something.
Hmm.
But I guess, on a daily basis, as far as creativity outside of that, gosh, part of me wants to say cooking, but I've actually
Hmm.
gotten quite boring in what I make for dinner.
Yeah,
so maybe,
I know.
so maybe that's not it. Um,
But I think it's
I,
I think it's really great to acknowledge that you're creatively fulfilled. And then
mhm,
outside, because you do have a family. So
yeah.
outside of work, you can relax and you can not be creating.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
yeah,
I think that's beautiful because we're not machines, right? We can't just be making and doing and being creative. Maybe you're taking
sure.
in art because you're watching your favorite show or a movie or
Mhm.
whatever. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And one thing that's been really fun about, so my son is just turned 5 in March, and he's really starting to take an interest in what music we listen to in the car
Oh,
versus
fun.
like, oh, Doc McStuffin theme song or whatever. And so helping him explore what his musical taste looks like, and he, loves country music. Like, we're gonna go see Granger Smith in concert this summer, and he is like cannot even believe that's real life. And so that's been really cool to see how he remembers songs and is starting to recite lyrics and like practice singing, and how it's kind of helping him come out of his shell in some ways. And so, I don't want to project any assumptions about who he will be or what he'll be interested in. But part of me thinks, maybe music will be his thing. Like, and so it's been very interesting to figure out how to continue to foster that. And then in myself, think about like, how could we continue to grow this if it, is a passion? Like,
Hmm.
is he just want to listen to the song because he thinks it's good? Or is it like he's really starting to think about the lyrical side of things and the
Hmm.
performance or whatnot? So it's very cool to think about at the age that he's at, like what that could grow into.
Hmm. Oh, that's gonna be fun. That's fun. That's the fun
Yeah.
part about being a parent is it's like, how are you gonna turn out? What are you gonna end up
Yeah.
doing? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to talk to you about you have something you created called You Do You 82 and the idea of progress over perfection. And let's talk about your masterminds. So tell us about all of those amazing things that you've created.
Oh gosh, just a little bit. You said this was going to be about an hour. Are you
I
sure
know.
you're not in for a few? I'm just kidding. Okay, so You Do You 82 was something that I created back in January of 2021. I guess to even take it back a few steps further, in September of 2019, I started a health and personal growth journey that completely changed my life. And part of doing so was participating in a very popular habit challenge that happens at the end of the year for the last 90 days. So I did that myself in 2019. And then in 2020, when it came around, I was like, you know what? I really need other people to experience this as well. So I started a Facebook group, invited a few friends and family to do it with me, threw up a Facebook post on my personal Facebook page. And before I knew it, it had grown into several hundred people. And I was like, I don't know what this means, but I feel like this is the start of something. And mind you,
Oh,
I was still working full time at the Y. Like, this was just something I was doing because I personally was really excited about it. So anyway, challenge ends. And in January, so many of the women said, can we continue? This has been so helpful. I love this community. Like, I feel better than I ever have before. Can we just keep going? And for me, the habits that were part of that challenge, I'd already mastered basically the year prior. So I was kind of like, I'm a little bored with this, but I do really love this. So where do we go from here? And so we looked at another challenge that's 75 days, but it's pretty intense. And it didn't quite make sense for most people in the group. And like one of my core values is inclusivity, and I couldn't on purpose leave people out. So I'm like, gosh, we just need something that fits everyone's needs, that everyone can participate in their own way, that still pushes us towards growth and holds us accountable. So one thing I had said in the group exercise classes that I was teaching at the time quite frequently was you do you. Because I would show a move and then I would show, well, here's how you can make it a little harder, or here's one way you can modify it, or if that doesn't work, just do X, Y, and Z. Like, you do you. The fact that you're here, that's the hardest part. Like, live your own life. This is your workout. So you do you was already something that was kind of in my mind. And I would say the people in my classes knew me for saying. And so as I was thinking about, gosh, we just need something where everyone can do their own thing. Like, you do you obviously popped in my head. And then I was like, you do you 82, like literally just light bulb moment, like the creative like force. I don't know if you've read, what's it called? Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. I feel like it was like one of those like moments.
Yes.
And then,
I love that book so much. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And then I haven't read it for years, and I actually should probably pick it back up now that I'm doing what I'm doing now. But anyway, 82 was halfway between 75 and 90. And I was like, okay, this is meant to be, like, we're rolling with this. And so that's where it began. And what makes my habit challenge unique compared to others is everyone gets to choose the 6 habits that they implement for the challenge. And that could be related to everything because we're all on different journeys. Some people might want to be very health focused. I've had women take this really business focused. I've had some really pour into their relationships through this challenge, and some where it's just a little bit of everything. But the coolest part is that we're all walking through this journey together because, scientifically speaking, research suggests that when we're in any kind of life change or in the process of building habit, when we do so in community or are accountable to something that's bigger than just deciding to do it for ourselves, we're much more likely to stick with it. So, then one thing that kind of came from that was this idea of progress over perfection, which is something that I had worked really hard for a few years to undo myself. As we even talked about at the beginning of this interview, we have this gold star syndrome where we start a challenge or something. We're like, oh, that sounds good. I'm going to do it. And then all of a sudden we decide we're going to change everything about our life ever. And we're like, yes, this is going to be great. And then 3 days or 5 days or 2 weeks in, life happens. We don't do those things. And then we're like, well, I'm trash. This is trash. I'm going to throw this in the garbage because we haven't given ourselves the grace to stand back up again and make that small incremental progress versus striving for this unattainable level of perfection. So in this challenge, I really encourage women to choose habits that push them outside their comfort zone slightly, but are actually attainable because it's these small, consistent wins and these micro decisions to stand back up and try again that helps us build these habits that are really sustainable for the long term. Because even with some challenges, if you're doing something that's so outside your lifestyle, even if you complete the duration of the challenge, a lot of times it was way more than made sense. And so we just immediately go back to where we were in the beginning. Well, what's the point of that? Like, it doesn't teach us how to integrate into life. And what our forever goal is to become the most healthy, strong, confident, centered version of ourselves. And unfortunately, that doesn't happen overnight. That comes with stacking those habits, little tiny bits at a time, and choosing to recommit to ourselves in a way that also honors where we're actually at in that season. So since that time, January of 2021, this challenge has grown and morphed and changed, and this community has grown together. There's some women who have done this challenge like 4 or 5 times, which is incredible because every time they've done it, they've shifted, they've grown, they've added, they've changed. And so when you look at that span of what this looks like over time, they're like, I don't even recognize who I was when I very first heard about this thing. So it's very cool because, first of all, it's totally free. Anyone can start anytime. So there's not like, oh, I have to wait till January 1st, or I have to wait till Monday, or I have to wait until X, Y, and Z date because this is when everyone's doing it. Like, you could read about it today. You could listen to it on this podcast and be like, that sounds great. I'm going to do it tomorrow. Or you know what? I need 3 days to think about it. I think I'll start on Wednesday or whatever it might be. So yeah, just like this mindset of doing life together, stacking those small wins and letting go of that need to do it 1000% perfectly in order to do it at all has been the most transformational part of You Do You 82.
Oh my gosh, you just glow. So this episode will be available on my YouTube channel, and you just glow and light up when you talk about it. So you are obviously tapped into your purpose, and I can tell you're just, oh my goodness. Yes, we could probably talk all day about that. And
Yeah, thank
this
you.
mission is so incredible, and the lives that you have changed. This is obviously it's bigger than you are, and it's created
Yeah.
this community, which is that a private Facebook group then, I'm guessing? Or is
I
it
think
public, or how does
I think
that?
it's public. People don't
Okay.
just like randomly be like,
Yeah.
You 82.
Yeah.
People find it usually through me or because someone in the community invites them.
Okay.
I mean, someday I 1000% believe that this challenge will be something that most people know exists. Like
Oh,
that is, I know it with every fiber of my being. But again, the cool part and awful part of entrepreneurship is you can't do everything at once. You have to
mhm.
take little bite-sized steps to build on into the bigger vision. And what's so interesting for me about You Do You 82 is at one point I got to a point where I'm like, oh, I'm just teaching people to be healthy, like this is cool, whatever. But then once I started to see the transformation, and here's the thing, when we learn to invest in ourselves, when we take care of our physical, mental, and emotional health, we can show up for our lives in the capacity that we want to. So when we build that confidence in who we are, it allows us to shine brighter and step more confidently and fully into our purpose. And so seeing how the simple challenge that someone might hear about on the internet really taps into this bigger picture of changing the way women perceive themselves and the way that they show up and serve the world, like that's what fires me up. Because when we build that in ourselves, we show it better for our families, we show it for our communities, we show it for our businesses in a way that doesn't burn ourselves out.
Mhm.
And that's the mission.
That's amazing. And then your masterminds. Now,
Mhm.
what exactly are those like?
Yeah, gosh, talk about something that is just way bigger than ourselves. Like, I don't know if I'll get through describing what this means to me without crying. So, I don't
It's
have
cool.
tissues ready. So get ready. So as a new entrepreneur, I obviously was trying to figure out all the things at once. And for me, like I'm a very communal person, and I had always worked on teams, whether in the classroom or at the Y or at summer camp. Like I need people. And I didn't recognize at the time how much trying to internally process everything in my mind was really holding me back and truthfully driving me crazy. So so there's a two-part way that this came to fruition. First of all, I was talking to one of my friends that I had been at a retreat with last summer that kind of pushed me into what I needed to leave my job and pursue entrepreneurship. And I was expressing to her, like, gosh, there was just so much energy at the retreat. I loved it so, so much. Like, I was on fire. Like, I just feel like I need that in my life. I need to sit in the room with people who understand my life, but are pushing me towards growth and are hearing and helping me process my ideas and also saying, like, heck yes, you can. Because so often, like, we're the ones that are like, oh, no, that won't
Mhm.
work. Or here's 8 billion like things I need to figure out. Whereas if we spend 20 minutes with the right people, like we can get from point A to point B 1.5 million times faster and ready to take action. So I was like voice memoing her how frustrated I was about this and how I needed this. And she sent me a message back, something along the lines of, well, then it sounds like you need to create that. And I was like, oh,
Oh man.
yeah. Like we create what we crave, right?
Yes.
Around the same time, through very like random chain of events, I got asked to participate in a mastermind. I had no idea what it was. I just had a free schedule and was like, that sounds cool. And it turns out that completely changed my life. So it was like those two things in tandem that was like, wait a second, there's something really special here. And I need to bring this to the community of women that I have around me. So my masterminds are groups of about 6 women. um, primarily who live in rural communities, usually some connection to agriculture, whether they live next to a cornfield, grew up on a dairy farm, have a husband that works in ag in some capacity. There's that connection, or honestly, just live in the middle of nowhere, small town, because that is a unique experience in itself. But what makes the women in my masterminds unique is that they are very growth focused. They're interested in personal development. They're reaching for the best version of ourselves or of themselves. They are growth minded in some capacity, whether that's in business, in content creation, or just really at a deep level personally, or professionally, like in that they work for an external organization, but are just wanting to have conversations that are different than maybe they would have with the people in their backyard or with,
Mhm.
their neighbors in their small town. Like, gosh, I love living in a small town so much. I would not trade living rural for absolutely anything. But one thing I found in talking with women in rural communities is not everyone in your backyard is necessarily your cheerleader. And that can be really demoralizing when you see a grander vision for what life can look like, whether personally or professionally. When you're seeking things that are outside of the norm, that comes with a great amount of pushback. There's a incredible analogy that maybe you're familiar with, where there's the bucket of crabs, and anytime one tries to climb out, the other ones will instinctively pull it back every single time. And unfortunately, people aren't that different. So when we're seeking healthy habits, or when we're building a business that nobody understands, or when we're putting ourselves out there to create content, or maybe you can relate, like when you are pursuing a career that's alternative than what
Mhm.
other people expect as normal, like that can feel even more isolating than living in the middle of nowhere already does.
Yeah,
And so I'm
totally.
pulling, like, I'm literally magnetizing these types of women and putting them in community together. And I say that it is so much bigger than myself, because I cannot believe the life change that has happened, the ideas that have come from, the growth that I've seen in such a short period of time. So we meet bi-weekly for 2 hours, for the duration of 12 weeks, so in 6 meetings. And the deep connections, the high level conversations, and the things that we're willing to talk about with these women who were strangers like 5 minutes ago, it's mind blowing. And I really like have removed myself from the process of necessarily like who comes into these groups, and have like surrendered it to a force that is much bigger than myself. Because sometimes we'll start a group and I'm like, okay, here are six quote unquote random people from across, I can't even just say the country, because I do have several Canadians and one in Mexico, with seemingly nothing in common other than what drew them to the group. And within like 30 minutes, I'm like, oh my gosh, this group is here together for a reason. And gosh, I just can't even describe how incredible that is. Like, it is, like I said, it's well bigger than me, it's well beyond me. And I just feel like there was a tug that I got that I can't understand, that led me to do something that felt so freaking terrifying.
Mhm.
And now watching the change that's coming from it, like, is mind blowing. So I currently have 6 groups up and running. I
Wow.
started back in February, January. Um, so it's been a wild ride, and I'm in the process of putting together my first in-person retreat, which is like what really pumps me up, because as much as like Google Meets and Zoom is great for bringing people together, like there is nothing like sitting around a table or sitting around a group of couches and like just really pouring into each other. That's the thing, is like, talk about lies that we're fed. We're fed this narrative that like women can't support each other and women are in competition with each other, and we don't want what's best for each other. That's not true. We just have to find the right people and approach relationships and conversations with vulnerability and that mutual understanding that we are here to grow together, and that when we are pouring into each other and cheerleading and talking through those ideas and saying, heck yes, you can, that we will all rise together. And I see it every single day. And like I said, I know it's work bigger than me. And the fact that I get to be a part of it is like mind blowing, absolutely
Oh,
mind blowing.
oh my gosh. You're amazing. This is, woo, I love it so much. I feel like, it's one of those things where I met you through Jenna Kutcher's book launch group and her launch team, and just posted in her group and said, hey, does anybody want to chat with me? And I'd love to get to know some of you. And then, how divine and amazing that, we get to chat today. I definitely think we'll be in touch more in the future. And I am so excited about everything that you're doing, and just living where I live in this rural community. I already can understand and feel that need, which is something that I never in a million years would have thought about.
Yeah.
So how amazing is that? Okay. I want to be really respectful of your time and everybody's time today. So I'm going to ask you a few more questions. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Okay. I don't know if we can talk really quickly. You have a podcast that you're launching. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So we're launching middle of July. I think July 14th is the date, but I don't want to say that wrong. So hang tight. And it's interesting because I've been talking for probably 2 years about launching a podcast, but again, going back to progress over perfection, I got so overwhelmed by everything I didn't know or understand on the tech side of things that I just I held myself back from it. It's not the talking to people. It's not the talking. I can do that literally all day long.
It's the software. Yes.
Like I started an Instagram live series where I would just interview incredible rural women. And I loved that so much. And so this podcast has been really on my mind a lot. And then, gosh, by a miracle, someone reached out to me and said, hey, I know you've talked about putting out a podcast. Like, I actually produce podcasts. Would you be interested in working together? And I was like, yes. You are my angel. Oh my goodness. So right now we're working on the behind the scenes of just writing the description and figuring out all the episodes and doing the cover art and all the things. And she's taking care of all of the icky stuff that sounds not fun to me because she is an angel. But it's really going to be an extension of my brand, Raising Reuschel. Raising comes from, raising animals, raising babies, raising crops, raising ourselves, raising each other, all of that, being rural. And Reuschel being my last name. I don't know why I decided to build a personal brand off my last name that no one can pronounce, but here we are. So the podcast will be an extension of that, like really personal growth for rural women, what it looks like to think about and talk about things outside of maybe what's average conversation, and pursue growth in the best version of ourselves while thriving in our rural communities. So it'll be a mix of solo episodes, kind of me coaching, and then also interviews with just the most amazing people. I know it.
I love it. I can't wait to tune in. And when you have that, I will post on my podcast Instagram, so my Instagram followers can get a hold of you. And I love your Instagram page, by the way. It has such a great vibe, and I really like your reels and all of your graphics. Everything just looks so light and positive and shine, like it's your personality shine through. I think you've just done such an amazing job. And
thank you.
Yes. So very fun to follow. I definitely recommend everyone going to your Instagram page. Okay. How can we best support you? How can we get connected to you? Tell us all the things. Tell me the links. We're going to have them all posted in the show notes, but what do you want my listeners to do to be more connected to you in the future?
Absolutely. So the place I show up the most frequently is Instagram. Some does get kicked over to Facebook if Facebook's more of your jam. So as far as social media, you can find me at Raising Reuschel on Instagram and Facebook. I would love absolutely for you to tap into my email list. The link to that is in the bio of my Instagram feed. I am working very closely with someone on my website that will be launching around the same time as the podcast in July. So depending on when you're listening to that, you might be able to find my website, or you might have to wait a few minutes. But anything that you see on social media, if it resonates with you, I would sure love for you to share it with someone that you feel like could benefit from it. Like I said, I just love people. I love community. I love meaningful relationships. So just being in community with like-minded people is what gets me super excited. So would love for you to tune in the podcast.
Yes.
All of the above. All the things.
I have a rapid round of questions for you that I ask all of my guests. Are you ready? So top of mind.
I'm so ready.
no judgment zone here. We're all friends and we're just all wanting to know more. So first of all, what is your favorite color?
Like aqua, teal, that like family.
Yes, like your shirt. Yeah, yes. That's such a great color. My daughter's bedroom is like every shade of that. So you would love her room. We just did it last year. So, okay. Work beverage of choice. What do you like to sip on while you're working?
So this is Stoke cold brew with a little bit of chocolate syrup.
Ooh.
I drink that every morning. Nothing fancy, like literally just Hershey's chocolate syrup. But if I'm out and about now, Starbucks is 45 minutes from me. Our local coffee shop is like 25, but I'm getting an iced Americano with 1 pump mocha, 1 pump caramel, 1 pump hazelnut, no milk, no cream, no sugar, a little bit of a turtle flavor. So good.
Ooh, you said you loved iced Americanos. So that sounds delicious. I might have to write that down and try it.
Oh, yes.
All right. You mentioned Big Magic, which is a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of that book. Book or movie mention you want to bring up just because you love it or you want my listeners to check it out, whatever feels good.
Goodness. I am a huge personal growth book nerd. I just started a reel series called 3 Books Too, because I kept getting asked for book recommendations all the time. And I needed a like consistent way to be able to funnel those out into the world. So every Monday I share 3 books to something, whether it's 3 books to grow your business, 3 books to work on your money mindset, 3 books to build strong habits. So if you look for more book recs, you can head there. But one book I actually just read, and I'm sitting right here, is Find Your People by Jenny Allen.
Okay.
Yep. It's building deep community in a lonely world. It is so good.
Ooh, I might have to try that one.
Yes.
Okay.
My goal is to get her on the podcast. So if anyone here has a connection to her, I am ready. I am willing to receive.
Yes. Awesome. Did you get Jenna on your podcast? No?
No.
Oh, I tried to. I was filling out the form and somebody already like filled it out faster than me. Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. Where do you get your ideas or inspiration? Some people get their ideas when they're taking a shower, but that's not me. But what about you? Where's inspiration strike for you?
I would say the place where I feel the most inspired, calm, centered, strong, all the things is when I'm running or walking on a back road.
Love it.
It's just like there's something scientifically behind like the forward motion of walking or running actually helps to like clear our minds or reset. I don't know. Again, I don't know brain science. I probably should. But that's where, I get my ideas from, or I let things go. If there's like things swirling in my mind I can't figure out, like I am walking or running on a back road.
Okay. I love that. I'm a runner too. I'm recovering from an injury, but I love running. Yes, all the things. Okay. What is there something that you wish that you were good at? Because I'm a firm believer in we don't have to all be good at everything. So I wish I was really good at playing volleyball, which I'm not. But what about you? Is there anything?
I also really hate volleyball. What's so funny is, so I'm a runner now, but I was literally the opposite of a runner. And I taught myself to do it. So I know that if there's something I wish I was good at, I could figure it out if I wanted to and tried hard enough. But one thing that is endlessly frustrating to me that I wish I could just magically know how to do is like the super techie back end side of website podcasts. Like all of the things, I feel like I am constantly learning how to like set up my Square site so people can sign up for masterminds, or figure out like all of the 800 things that Instagram decides to change, or like how to make my emails look decent. Like if I could just like snap my fingers and be thoroughly proficient in all of that, I feel like my time would be maximized.
Yeah. I understand this completely. I went to art school and I thought I would graduate and make paintings all day. And it's like, I'm on the computer so much, but it's just part of it, right?
It is. And again,
it's fun to learn, but it's frustrating.
Graceful with myself in the process of learning, but sometimes I'm like, but I just don't want to. I just want to do the thing that I want to do. But such is life.
Okay, I think we're both teachers at heart here. So
Mm-hmm.
you are the teacher and we are the students. What is your challenge for the listeners? What are you challenging us with? What's our homework assignment after tuning into today's episode?
Mm. I think very often we get wrapped up in what we feel like we should be doing in life, in business, in parenting, in relationships. Like we take in all the external forces, and gosh, social media is so good for so many reasons, but it also like amplifies that of what we feel like our life should look like. And my challenge for listeners is like, what do you want? Like, what do you want your life to look like? What kind of mom do you want to be? What kind of business do you want to have? Like, how do you want to show up? Like, what habits of health make sense for you? Like, stop trying to do what someone else is doing, or what your in-law thinks you should do, or what your sister or your best friend or whatever. Like, the more grounded we can get on what we want and then step confidently into that, that's where we start living a life with more intention, with authenticity, and with purpose. It's when we get trapped in these like shame spirals of how we feel like everyone else is expecting us to show up, that life can feel really overwhelming and hard. Let it go.
Oh, I
Let it
love
go.
that. Oh, that's good. That's really good. Okay, I think that's all of the questions. So thank you so much, Emily, for your time. And I know my listeners are going to just love this episode so very much. And I cannot wait to listen to your podcast. It's going to be amazing. Yay. And I'm going to check out your challenge because I feel like that's something that I could definitely do. And I would love to get to know you a little bit more too. So thank you again for your time. And if you're listening to this episode, thank you again. And go check out Emily's, all of her things. And I will see you guys next week on the podcast. Thanks again. Bye.
Thank you.